Alright guys, the new Doom Tower bosses have been announced for the next reset. We've heard about them, we've seen their skills, but what about the champions we are going to need to beat them? So in today's video, I want to do some theory crafting and I'm going to need your help to see if we can figure this out ahead of time. So let's jump right in. Alright, so let's first start with Iragoth, the new dragon, and then the three minions, one priest and two guards. The dragon himself is immune to a whole lot of things, but what it does say that he is not immune to is decrease the cooldown effects, right? So these are effects that is not actually the debuff. These are direct effects such as, let's say, a basher with stinging blast. Warlord, Senacia as well also has this on one of her skills. You even have Ursine, Ironhide, the black bear basically has that on his A1. You also have the Zephyr Sniper, which has that on her A1. So this might be the way to control this boss to prevent at least the A2 and A3 from happening, which does look like it can be a big problem. So if you can at least deal with that and you only have to deal with the A1, which is a one-turn block cooldown skills, you can, let's say, then place a decreased accuracy, or if you have enough resistance on your team, this might not even be a problem. And then for the rest of the things that it doesn't say that he's immune to, we don't see HP burn, we don't see bombs. Perhaps that could be a new strategy we could start using. So because there is minions, Drexstar might still be a great option here. Place the HP burn. Perhaps you want to work with, let's say, Achok the Wendarin. He also has some pretty interesting HP burn effects and also some freeze effects if you want to try to control those minions so that they don't go into placing their debuffs. This might be a way to go. There's obviously other HP burn champions you can use, but every time there are minions, HP burn is always a great idea. Then there's the problem of the minions themselves, their skills, and the passives of the boss. If every 5 turn he summons them and then he eats one of them, you're going to get some kind of effect, right? If it's the priest, it is basically going to reset his skills, so that's a little bit of a problem. But every time you kill the priest, it is also going to reset the cooldown of all enemies' skills when this champion is killed by an enemy. So you will need to have a lot of resistance to prevent this from happening. So again, decreased accuracy overall is going to be very important. Then if he kills the guard, or sorry, if the guard is alive rather, it is going to decrease the damage taken by allies from AoE attacks by 75%. So you're going to have a very hard time trying to nuke the boss and also trying to kill these ants. So I think that HP burn, poison is a great way to do it, at least for the minions, because the boss himself is immune to poison but not to HP burn. But then also bombs. So they don't really talk about bombs, and I think we've overlooked bombs for a long time, but this might just be the new meta for these bosses, or at least this one here. So for example, we have Grunge Killjoy, which does have a cleanse, continuous heal, so this is great, but also a one-turn detonation bomb on his A2 AoE. On top of that, you do have a passive that will increase your turn meter of all allies by 10% whenever a bomb debuff detonates on an enemy. Combine that with, let's say, a War Mother, which does deal more damage to bosses with bombs, you might have a pretty good strategy right there. There's obviously even more champions that can do bombs. There's also Soul Drinker, if I'm not mistaken, right here. He has a couple of bombs himself, so perhaps this is the new way to deal with this one. Then there is Grythion. This boss also looks pretty complicated to deal with. I'm gonna say that perhaps bombs could work here as well. I know it sounds kind of strange, and yes, he will go into transferring those bombs to you if he has enough accuracy, right? So if you have enough resistance on your champions, you might not be affected by the debuff transfer. The big issue is the removal of all buffs on all enemies, which cannot be resisted. So whatever he opens up with might put you in a position where you're going to get the wrong buffs removed. But if you cycle your skills right in between those, perhaps you are able to go into, let's say, a counterattack phase where you're going to get a lot of damage dealers be able to do their hits before he removes the counterattack. That might be a viable strategy as well. So this will require obviously a lot of testing once he goes live. I will definitely be trying some bombs on this guy as well, perhaps even again with our Soul Drinker. Because if he dies, we're actually going to place more bombs, and he can't always transfer the bombs to us, right? So perhaps there is a way to work around that. But instead, for this one, same thing. We are immune to, like, or not immune, but like we take less damage from enemy max HP skills. We also take less damage from poison debuffs. We are not immune to HP burn, but there's only one champion or enemy, so therefore I don't think this is going to be very important. We also have a reduction of the turn meter effects. Instead, I would look for champions that have extra turns, or champions that, let's say, have a relentless set or go into counter attack. So two that come to mind right now is, let's say, any counter attack champions. Perhaps Skull Crusher could work in this case. Maybe it would be Martyr. Bringing decreased attack might also be really important. But what about two Rotos? Yes, I do have two Rotos. This might be really hard for you guys to get, but we do ignore defense quite a bit. We have a chance at taking some extra turns. We can limit the amount of damage we take every hit, which means we might not trigger his passive to counter attack when we reach 50% HP and get the heal reduction debuff, right? We can also somewhat heal ourselves. We could also use perhaps two Faceless. This champion will ignore defense entirely. If you can make them strong enough in relentless sets, perhaps you can cycle through these champions to hopefully nuke the boss without enemy max HP before he kills you, right? So there is a couple of champions we can work with. These are some of the ideas I have so far. I really want to know what you guys are thinking right now. Let's start theory crafting down below. Is the bomb strategy a little bit absurd to think? Perhaps for this one, but perhaps for the other one it would work. What about hard-hitting skills, ignore defense for this one right here? Do let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys later.